I once met this dude named Matt. When I was out with friends at a bar in summer, I was out with a big group, and Matt and I made friends at the bar vibing over the Cubs game. That was on my group kind of dispersed away from me as I spoke with Matt. So it wasn't like Matt really spoke to any of my friends. We ended up exchanging Instagrams, and he had a decent amount of followers on Instagram, and his pictures made him seem like a normal 20-some-year-old dude who likes to gout, travel, and stay active. After we exchanged info, I went to go find my group. Honestly, whenever you brute with another guy while you're at a bar, the odds of ever actually contacting each other again after exchanging info are slim to none. You always act like you'll hit him up, but come the next day when you're sober, you just have no interest. Well, the next day, which was a Saturday, I went out to another bar/rest with my friends. This was an outdoor spot on the water. It was for my friend Tyler's birthday. I put something on my Instagram story, as well sang at the bar for him. After about an hour, we were done with dinner and just hanging around the outside section of the bar. When I got a tape on my shoulder, I turned around, and it was Matt had dabbed me up with a smile and said this was his favorite Saturday night spot. Introduced Matt more officially to my friends this time, saying, "You guys remember Matt?" Even if they hadn't really spoken to him, they did see him the night before. Well, as the night went and Matt kind of hung around for a while, and it was fine because everyone was drunk, including him, and everyone was just having a good time. The next time I saw Matt was when he invited me golfing on a hot day. Honestly, I suck at golfing, but it's something I want to get better. So when he invited me early one Sunday morning, I went to think it was literally the following weekend after I saw him last. It was just him and I going. It ride to get a couple of my friends to go, but they were too hungover and said it was too early. Matt and I just vibed playing golf. I think it was only 9 holes. It took us like 2 hours. Afterwards we got food, and then I went home to relax before work the next day. I saw Matt own more time out after that before he invited me on a hiking trip with him to Arizona. Honestly, Arizona and the Grand Canyon were always on my bucket list. I just checked the dates with work and confirmed I was able to go first, and I was an immediate yes. I asked Tyler and a couple of other friends to come with, but they were heavy-nosed. They said they couldn't get the time off work and needed to save money, the typical responses from many of my friends. When it tried to get them on a trip, I asked Matt if any of his boys were going, and he said nah, he was going solo due. I actually hadn't met any of Matt's friends yet. His Instagram painted him as this super popular guy though, so I didn't find it weird. We flew out on August 15th and our return flights to Chicago were August 18th. Well into that night, Matt rented a car for the weekend, and on the way to the Airbnb, we stopped for food and alcohol. By the time we got to the Airbnb, it was late. We had a couple of beers when we got there, and I could tell that Matt was down to stay up longer, but I was admittedly shot and wanted to go to sleep. This was when I realized there was only one bed in the Airbnb. I had never asked him to confirm that there were 2 bedrooms. When I brought it up, I pointed to the couch I was sitting on and said, "It's a pull-out couch." He then said, "Relax," and that he's not going to charge me for the Airbnb. Honestly, a free stay in Arizona. I couldn't complain about the couch. I pulled out the sofa bed, set up the sheets, and went to sleep. It was surprisingly comfortable. In the middle of the night, I woke up to Matt walking through the living room to the kitchen to get water. I'm a light sleeper. The sound of a pin drop will make me wake up. I rolled over and went back to sleep. The next morning, Matt woke me up early. It was a sunny, gorgeous day, and we drove straight to the Grand Canyon. I had no idea just how massive it truly was, or how many individual trail options there were. We hiked the Bright Angel. I think I didn't realize how out of shape I was until that day. Matt was perfectly fine, laughing and telling me to keep up while I was dripping and sweating out of breath. We took numerous breaks, which we used to take a million amazing pictures. It was beautiful. Eventually, we got back to the car. We had been hiking for over 3 hours and it needed food. Wes stopped by a deli on the way back. It was a long drive back to Phoenix, and when we got there, we took a midday nap. And then after that, we explored around Phoenix. And of course, in Matt fashion, we drank at multiple bars. I barely knew the guy, but I could already see he liked his alcohol. Fast forward, we got really drunk, but I think I got drunker, and I'm not sure how, because Matt was downing as many drinks as me. We had to leave the rental on the street and Uber back to the Airbnb. It was late. Time flew by somehow. I don't remember much besides Matt blasting music in the Airbnb for a bit and my plugging my phone in next to the couch. I guess I just went to sleep after that night. I woke up randomly, probably a couple of hours after I fell asleep. My bladder was about to explode and my mouth was drier than the Grand Canyon. I got off the couch and headed toward the bathroom, but I heard something, a crack in the floor, like a crack from pressure. I scanned around the dark room with my eyes and saw nothing. So I went to the bathroom. While I was in the REM midstream, I heard a door clicking shut. It had to be Matt's bedroom door. When I finished peeing, I went to try Matt's door, but it was locked. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Whatever, I went back to the couch and fell back asleep pretty easily. The next morning, I woke up at like 8 am, head throbbing. The first thing I noticed was my phone. It was in a weird position. I had it charging last night and left it laying on the floor next to the couch bed. But no, it was sitting on the table next to the couch and it was unplugged. I was questioning why I might have done this, but ultimately my answer was simple. I was just super drunk. That day, we obviously didn't do any hicking, otherwise I would have puked. We just Ubered to the car and then did some driving around, exploring different neighborhood scenery and checking out the botanical gardens. I didn't really want to drink that day, but later on Matt convinced me and wouldn't. It was another night of getting really, really drunk. Our flight was at like 1:00 p.m. and the following days, at least we didn't have to worry about getting up really early. We got back to the Airbnb late again, I'd say between 1 and 2 a.m. This time, Matt insisted on letting me sleep in the bed that night. Just because it was fair. Honestly, I didn't argue. I eventually took my bag to his room and then said goodnight and shut the door. I didn't lock it, not that it mattered, because the locks from what I remembered had those door orc knobs with locks that you could easily unlock with like a butter knife or something. I wish I could say the story ended there and that we went home in peace the next day. Well, I woke up that night, probably not long after I fell asleep. I didn't know what woke me up at first. It's like waking up to a sound, but you didn't fully consciously hurt that sound, because you were still technically asleep when it caused you to wake up. I looked around the room and then for me phone. My phone was missing. I had it plugged in next to the bed and had the phone on the bed next to me, but now the cord was just dangling from the outlet to the ground with no phone. How could this happen again? I looked on one side of the bed on the floor and then the other, and I jumped up and screamed at the top of my lungs when I saw Matt laying face down, sprawled out on that side of the bed on the floor. He looked up looking like he just woken up from a deep sleep. I shouted, "What are you doing?" He looked around the room, acting confused like he didn't know how we got there. He stood up and said that he must have been slacked out, that he just walked in here to go to bed, but then remembered I was in the bed and he crashed on the floor. But that didn't make sense because he was on the side of the bed, further from the door. It then accused him of taking my phone and he played dumb. He said it should check under the bed, maybe it fell. Then he got on his knees, looked under the bed and instantly said, "Bro, her it is," and he pulled it out from under the bed. I looked at him and I genuinely felt like I was staring at a different person. Now, who was this guy? Did he really try getting into my phone twice? I told him I'll just go back to the couch, but he would. And then he left the room. You bet your ass. I locked the door this time. If it weren't for the phone, sure, I just see it as he was really drunk and did something goofy like come pass out on the floor, but I was detecting. There he took my phone and I know it, since I was still kind of drunk, I didn't really have much trouble falling back asleep. Once again, I wish it ended there, but it didn't. I woke up on a more time that night, and this time I quickly realized why at the foot of my bed was Matt standing there, but all I could really see was his silhouette. For some reason, I didn't jump or scream this time. He sat down on the bed and started rubbing my foot, and that's when I screamed at him to get out. He wouldn't move, so I had to physically push him off the bed and out the bedroom door. I started packing my clothes into me bag, and then quickly packed all my toiletries and whatever else I packed. I didn't say a word. He sat upright in the couch watching me like a creepy NPC the entire time. It was the most unsettling part. I called an Uber to the airport. I wasn't staying there another minute. He didn't try to stop me. I got to the airport just as the sun was starting to rise and a shard as it ride to sleep. I couldn't, my mind was just racing. I waited there the entire time for the flight. I paid like $35 to change my seats so I wouldn't be next to Matt. I looked out the window the entire time. The plane was boarding so I wouldn't have to make eye contact with him. I didn't tell any of my friends until later that day. I just needed time to process and digest everything. A couple of my friends said, "See, it told you he was weird," and pointed out that both times we ran into him he was alone. It got me, so thinking that the only reason he ran in to meet the outdoor bar was because he saw my Instagram story and probably came there. Actual stalker behavior. I blocked his number and Instagram. But before doing so, I went to one of his older Instagram posts where he was with friends. Noon was tagged in the picture, but I looked at the comments and there was one comment from a guy who looked like he was in the picture. Is all that Matt wasn't even following him or vice versa. It took it up on myself to DM the guy asking if he was still friends with Matt. The guy responded back within 10 minutes saying this guy's a freak runaway. From there, he told me about his own experience along with the other guys who used to be friends with him, who all had to cut him off. The guy untagged himself from Matt's photo, but has said he can't forcibly get him to take down the picture. He wasn't surprised at all when it told him what had happened in Arizona, and the guy's response was, "Guys should be in jail." It's crazy that I thought Matt was just a normal dude who was looking for a bro, but he ended up being a potentially dangerous predator. I still just want to know what he was trying to access on my phone. This happened last summer around mid-July. I was home from college for a few weeks, and I was just trying to enjoy the break before my next semester started. My name's Kyle, and I live in Maryland. I had been talking with my two closest friends, Jason and Marcus, about doing something together. Just the three of us like we used to back in high school. We all got to different colleges now, so it's rare that we get time like this. We ended up planning a weekend beach trip to Ocean City. Jason's family owns a small beach house there that they don't use much, and he got permission for us to stay there for a few days. It was nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom place a couple blocks off the sand, but it was perfect for what we needed. Just time to relax, party, Abbott, and catch up. We drove down on a Friday afternoon. The weather was hot upper 80s with that heavy, humid air that sticks to your skin. It smelled like sunscreen and salt water. The second we got into town, Wes spent the day walking the boardwalk, messing around in some of the arcades, and people watching. The beach was packed with tourists, kids running around with beach balls, families with umbrellas and coolers, and lifeguards constantly yelling at people to move out of the restricted areas. Everything felt normal. It was just a fun summer day. Later, we went back to the house, grilled burgers, had a few drinks, and started playing drinking games. By midnight, we're drunk and bored, and someone, maybe Marcus, suggested we go back to the beach. There's something weirdly appealing about being near the ocean at night. The beach is almost completely empty. The air cools down, and there's just something peaceful about it. We didn't bring much with us, just some hoodies in case we get cold, our phones, and a flashlight. Jason grabbed from the kitchen drawer. We didn't plan to swim around or anything, just hang out and maybe walk along the shore. We headed down a side street and onto the wooden board walk, then took the steps down to the sand. As expected, it was basically completely deserted. The waves were steady, and the only light came from a few lamps on the boardwalk and the moon behind some clouds. There was barely enough visibility to make out where the water met the shore. We walked along the edge of the surf, occasionally letting the cold water hit our ankles. We joked around, talked about random stuff, and just killed time. After a while, we stopped near one of the lifeguard towers, those wooden ones they take down at night, and we just laid in the sand looking up at the sky. That's when Jason noticed something. He suddenly sat up and said, "Is that someone walking over there?" Will sat up and looked in the direction he was pointing. At first, I didn't see anything. It just looked like a dark blur near the shoreline. But then, I saw a figure. But it was just a silhouette at that point, walking slowly right along the edge of where the water touched the sand, probably 50 or 60 yards away. We figured it was just another person out late like us, maybe just going for a walk. But then we noticed that their movement was off. They weren't strolling around like someone enjoying the beach. Their walk was stiff, slow, and almost mechanical. Arms didn't swing naturally, and their posture was strange. Their head was tilted down, but not fully. It looked like they were staring at the sand or maybe scanning it. Well, stopped talking and just quietly watched them. Something about it put me 1G. I remember whispering, "What the hell are they doing?" Marcus suggested that maybe they're just looking for something. Jason joked that it was probably some drunk tourist who dropped their keys. We kind of laughed it off and went back to messing around, but I kept glancing at the person. A few minutes passed, and I noticed they had stopped moving. They weren't walking anymore. They were standing completely still now, and they were definitely closer, maybe 30 yards away. That's when it started feeling uncomfortable. We tried not to stare or shine our light at them, but it was getting hard to ignore. There was just something off about the entire thing. Marcus finally said, "They've been standing there for like 5 minutes. Who just stands like that?" Then Jason said something that made my stomach drop. He said, "He's not just standing, he's looking at you, Kyle." I didn't know if he was joking or not. I kind of laughed nervously and said, "Nah, he's looking at the sand." But Jason shook his head and said, "No, look closer. His head's tilted at you." That's when Jason pointed the flashlight at him. I didn't even want him to do that, honestly, but I clicked it on and aimed the beam. The light hit the figure for just a second before the battery started dying and it flickered out. But that second was enough. Is a whim. He was almost grayish white with no shirt. He was wearing wet jeans, clearly from the ocean. His arms hung completely limp at his sides. His head was tilted at a weird angle, not broken, but unnatural, and his eyes were wide open, almost bulging. That beam of light hit him. He moved fast. Without any hesitation, he broke into a full sprint straight at us. I can't even describe how unnatural it looked. There was no build-up. He went from standing completely still to running at full speed, almost like he launched forward. All three of us screamed and bolted. We didn't even look back. We just ran. I could hear Marcus behind me yelling, "Go!" A sore feet pounded into the sand. My lungs were burning. We ran all the way back to the steps leading up to the boardwalk and didn't stop until we got to the street. Only then did we turn around, but he wasn't there. The beach was empty. There were no footprints behind us, just the sound of waves. Wes stood there frozen, trying to make sense of it. We didn't talk much on the walk back to the house. When we got inside, we locked all the doors and windows, pulled the blinds shut, and stayed. Up until the sun came up, none of us could sleep. I kept expecting to hear knocking or see that pale face outside the window, but thankfully it never came. The next morning, we tried to laugh it off. It was probably just some cracked-out homeless guy trying to scare people, but deep down none of us believed that. The way he moved, the way he peered out of nowhere, the lack of footprints, it made no sense. Wes stayed one more night, but we didn't leave the house, well if dearly, the next morning. Over the next few weeks, we tried to move on, but then Jason texted me one night. He said he'd been having dreams, the same dream over and over. He'd wake up and see the guy standing in the corner of his room, soaking wet. He had tilted, just staring at him, no movement, not talking, just standing. I told him that was messed up, but I didn't tell him that I was having the exact same dream. Everything was the same. The guy, the posture, just standing in my room, not moving and not talking. Sometimes I wake up thinking I heard the sound of wet footsteps in my hallway. But when I check, noon's there. Then last week, almost a year later, I was scrolling through this local Facebook group. Etty posted about stuff going on in Ocean City. Someone uploaded a photo they'd taken the night before from the beach. It was grainy and dark, but I recognized what they were talking about. They said, "Does anyone know who this creepy guy is that I saw standing by the water at like 1 a.m.? I clicked the photo. It was blurry, but I recognized him instantly. Same posture, same pale skin. He was just looking down at the water. The comments chilled me even more. There were dozens of people saying they'd seen him too. Some said he was there for hours. One person said they watched him walk into the water and never came back out. Another said they found wet footprints on their back porch 2 streets from the beach. No prints leading to or from them. I don't know what we saw that night, but I know this: I'll never go back to that beach at night. Again, I grew up in Massachusetts, and every summer since I could remember, I would spend the 3 months in a classic coastal New England town. You know the type. If you've been in that area of the country. I had a big group of friends who always did the same thing, and we would get up to all kinds of shenanigans every day after our respective jobs. I was 19 years old when this happened, like most of my friends, and I had just gotten off of a dock boy job. I had so like any other night. I texted my friends what the plan was and picked up my friend, who I'll call Emerson, from his job to go get alcohol, issue us, the one with a fake ID. We got the alcohol and went back to the small town where we lived. We decided to get on my family's boat that I was able to take out on my own while we wait for everyone else to finish what they were doing. We drove around the little peninsula. We were onto this place where a lot of people and hang out. There were a couple of boats anchored already, and it was about 7 p.m., but it still wasn't unusual. We found a spot between the 2 boats, threw the anchor down, and just chilled and drank. We were having a nice time listening to the music from the boat to our left when the one to our right decided to leave. And then eventually the other boat's music shut off. We thought they were going to leave as well. So Emerson and I, in our new drunken state, began to groan and yell to turn the music back on to keep the party going, and a bunch of other stupid stuff like that, but it didn't happen. We were sitting on the bow and started to drink again before Emerson said, "Dude, look." It turned around to look at the boat and saw 3 people standing on the edge, just looking at us. My first reaction was to laugh because I was drunk, and then it turned back around, but Emerson kept staring at them. Now, admittedly, I don't have a great sense of danger. I tend to be optimistic and lighthearted about most things. But Emerson was obviously uncomfortable. It told him not to worry about it. They were probably just trying to get a better look or something. But he kept looking with an uncomfortable look on his face, which I didn't get at the time. At this point, it's pretty dark, nothing illuminating the area but the lights from their boat. And therefore you couldn't really see who it was, just the silhouettes of these people. After a couple of minutes of trying to get Emerson to snap out of it, it turned back around and saw they were in the same position staring at us. It thought it was a joke. So I got themegaphone from the compartment over the steering wheel and said 20 to watch fell, which pissed Emerson off because he sensed something wasn't right. I was putting it back when I heard one of them laugh audibly. A man, but something was off about it. It sounded almost sinister. It was slow and low, and it was kind of raspy. It was at that point that I started to feel uncomfortable. Emerson got up and said, "Let's get the hell out of here, bro. This ain't right." But I responded that it was fine. Right after that, we heard two splashes in the water from their direction and saw that only one silhouette remained on the boat. That made Emerson immediately start pulling the anchor up, as I was laughing at the situation in a thim which, looking back now, was unbelievably stupid. He tried telling Meh to turn the engine on, while I was laughing my ass off watching him pull the anchor up, as I was trying to drink my beer. In fact, I was laughing so much that I didn't notice the sound of the two people swimming near our boat. Emerson paused and looked at me with the anchor in his hands, which made me pause too. We couldn't see into the water as it was dark and the lights were off with the boat. I called out hello and got nothing. Even the sound of the splashing water stopped. Right after that, I simultaneously heard Emerson yell, "Oh!" and a sudden splash of water behind me before I turned and saw someone trying to climb onto the back of our boat. Out and while turning the key, as a hand grabbed the railing on the side of our boat near Emerson, who was yelling and holding the anchor up ready to fight. If Finale turned the boat on and instinctively gunned it forwards, mashing into the sand bar that was right in front of us. I put it in reverse and drove backwards as fast as possible until we were out of the little bay and back into more open water. It threw it back in neutral, and Emerson and I just looked at each other before he started giving meth. "It told you so in your embass." It fully agreed and said we should go back at, which he agreed. In hindsight, we should have hightailed it back to the boat docks near my house, but for some reason we decided to pick up everything that was thrown around during our escape. We didn't even finish before, in the direction we just came from, the lights of a boat approaching, and it was approaching fast as Ed, knowing way, and jumped back to the steering wheel and pushed full throttle. Our boat is old, so it doesn't go super fast, and even though I was full speed ahead, they were gaining on us. Emerson started to lose it, saying things like, "Who are these guys? What do they want? Why can't they just let us chill on the water?" So I told them to chill out and focused on going straight to the docks. After about 5 minutes, the docks were in sight, but the boat behind us was so close that we could see the bow itself going down with the waves. I honestly didn't know what to do. I banged a hard left and got us close to the shore, as I could without beaching, and miraculously the other boat peeled off in the other direction. Webb breathed a sigh of relief, but it still went full speed back to the docks. After docking and being relieved at the fact that there wasn't any damage to the boat, we met up with our friends after that and told them what had happened, and also came up with some theories like maybe they wanted to Robuso or maybe they wanted to take the boat. We didn't recognize the boat, so they probably weren't from around here. I don't know. I don't like to think about what would have happened. I'm just glad we didn't find out. I do know that I'm thankful for Emerson being there. Without his skepticism, I think things definitely could have taken